Welcome. If you're new here, my name is Alexander Lyon. I've been a personal trainer in London for the last 10 years now. I'm currently making around £90,000 a year working 3 days per week. And in this video, I'm going to be walking you through my journey as a PT in London over those last 10 years, how my business models have changed, and also the biggest lessons I've taken depending on where I've been as well. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. So my first gym that I worked in was a Pure Gym in West London, and it was under a hybrid model. And that hybrid model essentially means that instead of paying rent to use the space and use the facilities, I would trade my hours. So I gave them 15 hours per week where I teach a couple of classes, I'd clean treadmills, and I basically just potter around in case anybody needs anything. I remember the first client I ever had, her name was Victoria. I sold her 20 sessions for I think £360, which is £18 a session. Considering that I now charge 80 to 100, I started at a very different point. At the time, I had zero understanding of what sales or marketing even were, to be honest. And my prospecting strategy was basically to go to people on the gym floor who were doing things wrong and tell them. I would just tell, that's wrong. Like, if you want to, like, I'll show you. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you need help, I'm your guy, right? No, come on, come out of there. Let me show you how it's done, because I'm so good, right? That was what I was taught to do, and that's what I did. And I used to get shouted at by members. It's an awful strategy, awful strategy. All in all, in my first 6 months, I'd made £3,000, and I was in very real danger of having to move back up north where I didn't want to be because I couldn't pay my bills. I was 2 months behind on my rent. It was an absolute disaster. I had to take a loan out just to survive. Now, why did that happen? My biggest lesson from that was you have to consider the location of the gym, first of all. The location I'd chosen, it wasn't a high income area. In fact, I would argue it's a more low income area, right? Middle to low. So combine that with the fact that there was 15 or 16 personal trainers in that gym. Everyone's, other than one, I think, was a male in their 20s as well. It doesn't make for a great prospect of being successful, right? The people can't afford it, and you have so much competition, and so many of us were struggling to make money that we were undercutting each other. It was getting toxic. Like, it just wasn't good. It wasn't good, but I didn't know what I should be looking for when I first started. And I took a little bit more of that information and understanding into my next gym. I then moved to a gym in Ladbroke Grove, which is near Notting Hill. And this gym was in a much more middle class area. The model I went in under was a staggered rent model. So I think the first month I had to pay £250 rent. And then the second month it was £450. And then month 3 and thereafter was £680 a month. And I would have to pay that in addition to having to deliver 3 free classes for the gym each week. I didn't mind having to do the classes because I needed the exposure. I needed to get clients. I needed to have a quick start. Otherwise, I was out of London. I was a goner, right? I needed this to work now. One of the big things that made me join this gym was the two managers. They both promised me that they were going to give me sales training. And I wasn't in a position to not believe them. I had to just go with it. I was like, if you're going to show me how to sell, then it's game on, because I know I can train people. I remember even admitting to that in my interview. They said, what's your biggest weakness? I said, listen, I know I can train people, but I haven't got a clue how to sell. Can you help me with that? I was very honest and vulnerable. I didn't know what I was doing. They gave me a new strategy, not going out and correcting everyone and telling everyone they're wrong on the gym. It was more now about calling the gym members, introducing yourself, checking in how their membership is going. Is there anything I can help with? Also, my name is Alex. I'm a new personal trainer here. I'm offering complimentary personal training sessions over the next couple of weeks. Would you like to meet up and book a time? The answer is predominantly yes. Most people see a lot of value in having a session with a PT. So that was what I did. I got on the phones and I started flying through the list. By the time I'd gotten down to about 150, my diary was full for the next week. I had about 35 consults booked. I'd never seen my diary full like that before. That was my first time, about 6.5, 7 months into PT. I'd never seen it so full. And I was like, well, even if I get 2 of these clients, that's a better start than my last gym. So let's see what I can do here. I ended up converting about 50% And so not two, I converted about 17 of those clients, 16, 17 of those clients. And then within the first 30 days, I'd made £5,000. Now, again, let's refresh. In the first 6 months, I averaged £500 a month. In my first month, from a standing start, 0 clients, I had made 5,000. That's 10x. Suddenly I knew I was onto something. I spent around 2 years at that gym and I peaked at around £8,000 a month, but it was always typically between 6 and 8. This came with new challenges though, because when you're managing a lot more clients than you're used to, there are organizational issues, there are administration challenges, there are also more what I would call emotional challenges, in the sense that I'd not been used to hearing about people's problems for 8 hours a day every day. So that took me a moment to not feel incredibly drained at the end of the day. But at the same time, it was a fantastic experience for me. One of the biggest, in fact, to this day, the biggest lesson that I learned was not to get complacent when things are going good. At the time, I was still a very young man. I'm still a young man now, actually, but I was a very young man. And I didn't understand economy. Like, I didn't understand how money really works, right? I just thought that now this is how much I get paid per month, and it never goes down now. Like, if you're working in an employed job, your salary doesn't usually go down unless you change companies. It usually only goes up. I had the idea that that was the same for me. That was not the same for me. And I made a few mistakes along the way. For example, I remember introducing this automated scheduling tool for all my clients. So rather than them messaging me to book in their sessions, I said, go to this website, you can book in, right? They all hated it and I lost half my clients. So as a result, I had to then rebuild again. But these were all the lessons I was learning. I was really cutting my teeth in a good place where there was plenty of demand. There was plenty of support for me. It was actually a good gym itself, which always helps. So yeah, it's a fantastic experience for me, and that really set me up for the rest of my career, to be honest. I later actually changed where I was working to a gym in Chelsea because I wanted to move closer to where I'm from, which is Chelsea and Fulham. And that's just where I wanted to be. So I moved to that gym, which was actually the same gym in a different location. And the first thing I realized was it was a much more transient location, right? This is something super common in the high income areas in London, which is where people are coming and going all the time. They're in town, they're out of town. They're in town, out of town. So it's hard to pin people down. So as a result, you almost need more clients. In Ladbroke Grove, I was able to have pretty much 90% utilization of my diary. So what I mean is 90% of the sessions I had, they would turn up every week. In Chelsea, it was more like 60% because people would travel more. They'd go on more holidays. They would have more business meetings. They would have to go meet clients in Zurich, right? There was more of that going on. So as a result, you had to get more clients overall to keep the same level of income. Now, to be honest, despite the fact that it was actually going really well, like I'd managed to get myself up to 6K, like pretty quickly, 6K per month. But the problem was the gym was falling apart. Like it was actually falling apart. There was floods happening all the time. And because the whole gym was carpeted, when you don't clean that, it's absolutely disgusting. So we had a fly problem, we had a rat problem. And when I'm charging people at this point, now like £70 an hour, or even, I think it was maybe 70 for 45-minute sessions, it was just a case of, I felt embarrassed to be charging that and working there. So I then basically went down the road into a private studio. But the biggest lesson for me here, I wouldn't even say it was a lesson. It was a feeling, right? Which is that I'd now built a client base twice in different locations. And suddenly I realized the first time wasn't a fluke. Because, at that point, I'd had one gym where I had no business, one where I was a superstar. At that point, is one a fluke? Like, what's the actual average? When I moved gym, I had the same success. And so then I was like so much more confident in my sell, in my business, in my abilities, that has really carried me through ever to that point. That was a huge moment for me to know that I could do it again. Now, when I moved to this private studio, there was one thing I overlooked, which was that there's no foot traffic anymore. I couldn't be calling members. There was no members, right? It was a case of you have to go out into the world and bring clients into the establishment now. And that was a massive challenge. I ended up using a service called Bark. And if you've heard of it, it's essentially a service matching platform where if I'm a customer, I could ask for a plumber, I could ask for a cleaner, a personal trainer, a massage therapist, whatever kind of service professional you need. And then the service professionals on the other side who have signed up to that service as well will get an alert on their phone. But if you want to get the phone number of the potential customer, you have to pay a £10 note, right? So you pay a tenner, you get their phone number, and then you get the chance to pitch. Before, I used to get handed 200 names and numbers, bam, 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 and I'm full. Now, I had to buy the data myself, right? So that was a big challenge. However, the ROI on that was always super good, to be fair. I couldn't really, if you can give £10 and get £1,000 back, you're not going to complain. You'll do it 1,000 times over. The issue that I ran into though was there simply wasn't enough inquiries coming through. My conversion rate was good, everything was good. There just wasn't enough people coming through. And as a result, I was always limited in how big I could grow my business. This was a situation that, to be honest, kind of dragged for a little bit, maybe a year or two, where I was doing all right. I was doing like 4 or 5K a month. I was doing all right, I was staying alive. But at the same time, after COVID, a lot of things changed. Like buying behaviors changed. People started traveling way more than they used to because they were trapped for so long. And remember, I initially never wanted to be a PT long term. I was trying to be a boxer. So I was almost fighting for survival financially because I'd been really poor managing my finances. I hadn't saved anything that I had. So as a result, I was struggling financially. And eventually I wanted to just take a break. I was on fight or flight for so long after COVID, because remember, the gyms shut down, half the trainers in the country went out of business. Like, personal training wasn't doing well. It wasn't doing well. There's a huge transition to online PT as well. So there was a lot going on and I just needed a bit of a break. So the clients that I had, I continued to train them during the weekends, and I went and got a full-time job for something I never thought I would do. But I needed a new experience. I needed a new environment. I needed new people. I needed a little bit of mentorship. I needed to learn more things. So I actually went and tried sales in the City of London. I wanted to be on the best possible sales floor that I could find and basically become the best salesperson I could be. And so that's what I did. I went to work in recruitment, and that was a very interesting experience as well. The company I was in is known for its culture. It's known for its culture. It's known for its work ethic. It's known for its discipline. It's known for prioritizing self-development as a whole and not just the job, right? Very few companies actually care about you as a person outside of your job. This company did, and obviously as a background as a fitness professional, that sat well with me, I mean, you would get a longer lunch break, but only if you went to the gym. It matched well with me. So I learned a lot there. I learned, because I'd been on my own for so long. I'd been on my own since I was 19 years old, just doing my thing, never having a boss, not learning from anyone, on a day-to-day in close quarters. Of course, I've had mentors along the way, but someone to essentially, I wanted to be managed. I wanted to be mentored. I wanted to be pushed. And that's exactly what happened. I improved my work ethic. I improved my organizational skills. I became more emotionally intelligent. I also became an expert in prioritization. Like, I'm the kind of guy that can get distracted and just do tasks, even though I might do the least urgent one before the most urgent one, right? And so there was a lot of learning for me there. And I also was in an environment where everybody was pushing themselves and everybody was good. I was working with the best people in the industry. So as someone more junior, it was great to be surrounded by that. I'm working with the best people, and I would just watch and I would learn, and it was a great experience for me. But after a couple of years, I was done. I was done. It wasn't providing the financial reward that personal training ever did. And to be honest, I hated the actual job. I liked a lot of things that I've just mentioned, and I valued a lot of things, and to this day I value a lot of those things, but the actual job itself, I couldn't stand it. So as a result, I was like, it's time for something new. Now for me, there was only one thing that I wanted to do, and I knew I could do, and it was go back to personal training. But this time, not go into it as a naive 19-year-old boy. This time, go back into it as a nearly 30-year-old man with a lot more maturity, a lot more experience, and just a lot more know-how about the market itself. And so that's what I decided to do. I thought, again, I still don't really have any huge savings at this point, but I then think, fuck it, let's go. So I quit my job and I decided to go to Clapham Junction. Clapham Junction is, I believe at this point, the third busiest train station in the whole of Europe. It's in the heart of southwest London, which is where I'm from, it's where I live. And I thought, this is where I'm gonna stay. Because one of the big issues I had throughout my career is I kept changing location. So I was never able to get that repeat business, you know, when you don't hear from a client for a couple of years and then they message you again. I was never able to get that. I was always having to get clients because I was never able to stay in one location for long enough. So that was a huge thing for me. I wanted to really be strategic about where I chose, and I chose Clapham Junction. I've been there ever since. I tried to go back to a commercial gym so I could use my old technique of calling. That didn't work though, because the gyms in the area, let's just say we didn't get along very well. So as a result, I then went to a private studio again. I had the same challenges before though. There's still no foot traffic. There's still no like clear way of getting clients. You have to go out and figure it out. So the owner of the studio, he basically said that the one thing you can do is you can do flyers, you know, and you can do, you know, you can try and do 100 to 200 flyers a week. Now I was under pressure because I was moving in with my partner and I really didn't want to let her down because she was nervous about the volatility of personal training. And I understood that, and I was a little bit as well. So I was like, we're not going to do 100 to 200 a week. We're going to do at least 1,000 a week, right? Because I've got time on my hands. That's the one resource I can invest a lot of. So I just got on the road and I just started smashing flyers. About 2 months in, nothing really has come back from it. I think I got one client from it. And then suddenly within 1 week, I got 8 clients. 8 clients, and they all paid 20 sessions up front. Suddenly I was back in business. Business was so good, in fact, that I didn't really need to work 5 days per week. I needed to work 3 days per week, nice long days, 6 to 10 sessions per day, charging a really good rate, the best rate I've ever charged. And as a result, my life is far more balanced. You know, I'm doing much better financially. I've started saving money properly as well now. And I'm enjoying the fact that I'm not reliant on a gym for my leads or for my customers. My customers come from me going out onto the streets and getting clients. That's when you know not to be arrogant. You don't need anyone anymore. You're not reliant on a gym. You're not reliant on anyone. You're just reliant on your own work ethic. And if you know what to do, you know how to sell, you've got the people skills and you've got the experience, like, how are you going to stop me at that point? But one thing was important to me was that I took all the lessons I'd learned along the way and actually applied them properly. And the one thing that really sticks out to me is regardless of how good my business gets, I do more business development every day. And that's one thing I took from recruitment, was it doesn't matter how much money you're making, you try and get more clients that day. It might not be for the full 6, 7, 8, 9 hours for the day, because that's not your priority anymore. You need to service the ones you've got. But you still got to continue to develop, continue to put your name out there, continue to let people know that you exist and that you can help. And that's what I continue to do to this day, right? Regardless of whether I'm full or not, flyers are going out. You know, I'm talking to people, I'm getting referrals. I'm doing as much as I can to continue to spread the word about what I can do. And the other strategy, as I mentioned, is to stay in that location for a good number of years. And as a result, things should get easier and easier over time. Now, don't get me wrong, flyers are a lot of legwork and it's not easy. Like, you know, try and walk up hills in 30-degree heat and go up to houses with 5, 6, 7 steps up to them, do that two to 250 times every day. That's not easy work, right? It's not easy when it's raining and sometimes you're falling down, you've fallen down the steps. Right? You literally fall down the steps in the rain with your flyers in your hand and you think, what the fuck am I doing? You get up. That's where your resilience kicks in. You go again, right? You fall over again, you get back up again, whether it's literally or metaphorically, you just got to keep going. And, you know, I think I'm in a point now where I'm so confident in my abilities to to get clients and to service clients and to build great relationships, that I want to share it with other people as well. You know, one thing I've not mentioned throughout that period was that in 2021, I actually spent a period of time teaching the level 3 personal training course, which I'm sure I'll speak more about in another video. And, you know, I had a lot of success with that, and I feel like I can help other personal trainers too who are on the same journey as me. So that's why I make the content I do. If you have any questions about anything, guys, I'd love to hear from you, and, you know, comment below. One day this channel will be discovered, I'm sure. But yeah, if you did find value in this content, then I would really appreciate it if you consider subscribing, hitting that bell so you never miss a video, and I'll see you in the next one.